That's why Manny Pacquiao, after Marquez knocked him out, Freddie Roach said, I want you to take a year off. That was a bad knockout.
Manny Pacquiao is negotiating with Barrios to fight at 147. No tears. I haven't heard one tear. So guess what?
What happens when a man steps into the ring with a legend whose spirit has never retired? And what do you do when that legend's return feels less like a fairy tale and more like a dangerous gamble with fate?
Since we know that Mario Barrios and Manny Pacquiao has been in serious negotiations.
There are boxing stories, and then there are epics. And this right here has all the makings of an explosive Greek tragedy wrapped in Vegas neon. Joe Rogan, never one to pull punches with his words, has stepped up with a bold, sobering warning. Mario Barrios, don't do it. Don't stand across the ring from Manny Pacman Pacquiao. Not because Pacquiao is the monster he once was, but because the very act of this fight being allowed to happen raises every red flag possible.
Let me ask you, is it a good fight? Mario Barrios versus Tank Davis at 147. Yes, it is.
Let's start with the basics. Manny Pacquiao is 46 years old. That's not just a number, it's a timeline of war. He's got 72 fights under his belt, and every one of those left a dent. His hands have been weapons since the late 90s. His wars with Morales, Barrera, Marquez, and Mayweather are now etched into the stone tablets of boxing's Mount Olympus. But Father Time doesn't play favorites. It doesn't matter if you're the pride of the Philippines or a multi-time world champion. The clock runs out on everyone.
You're 30, he's 46, hasn't fought in 4 years. Like, in your mind, how do you see the fight going? How are you going to beat Manny?
And yet, here he is again. Announced with the kind of showbiz glitz you'd expect from a Tyson comeback or a YouTube influencer bout, Pacquiao's return to the ring isn't just shocking, it's troubling. This isn't just a warm-up fight. He's not taking on a retired welterweight for charity. No, he's going straight into the fire, challenging Mario Barrios for a world title. You heard that right. The WBC sanctioned this madness. A 46-year-old inactive, unranked fighter is now fighting for a belt against a man in his prime.
Or what do you see yourself doing to him?
Yeah, no, I just had to use, all of that, like the, as busy as I've been in my career.
Joe Rogan's face might say it best. Somewhere between disbelief and a slow-forming migraine. On his podcast, In Between Jokes and Jabs, Rogan made it crystal clear. This is the kind of thing that could end badly, really badly.
But world titles in 8 different weight classes. Who the does that?
And the way he did it, like that quote. I'm a huge fan of Cotto. I love this school.
Now, let's be clear. Barrios isn't exactly the second coming of Sugar Ray Leonard, but he's 30. He's fresh, he's active, he hasn't spent the last 4 years trading jabs with retirement. While Pacquiao was dealing with political responsibilities, shaking hands, and delivering speeches in a suit, Barrios was still in the trenches, still sweating in gyms, still cutting weight, still eating leather on sparring days. So why, in the name of everything sacred, is this fight happening? Money. That's the only honest answer. Cold, hard, brutal economics. Boxing has stopped pretending to be a sport built on rankings and resumes. It's a carnival now for merit, and Pacquiao still pulls numbers. His name still draws clicks. He's a living legend with a fan base larger than some countries' populations. But that doesn't mean he belongs in the ring, especially not against Barrios.
He can come from, I think, 108 all the way to 154 and knock out all these guys.
This is where Joe Rogan's warning becomes prophecy. Because what's at stake here isn't just a belt. It's a man's legacy, a man's health, a man's future. Pacquiao's been knocked out before. Remember the Marquez shot? That nuclear right hand that put him face down, lifeless, motionless. There wasn't a breath in the room when he fell. That wasn't just a loss. That was a heart attack for fans worldwide. And now we're supposed to believe that older, slower, and long inactive, he can walk into a championship fight and not just survive, but win. This isn't a Rocky movie. There's no magical training montage that reverses biology. There's no magic footwork drill that restores reaction time. No amount of jogging in the hills with Freddie Roach holding a stopwatch is going to fix what 4 years away from the game has taken.
Guys.
Thank you to Manny Pacquiao. Unbelievable career that we may never have a career like that again.
Spencer Oliver, a former fighter turned analyst, said it without mincing words. This is a farce. This is the sport abandoning logic. Pacquiao's last performance wasn't inspiring. It was a fading echo of greatness. He didn't just lose to Yordenis Ugas, he looked human. Slower, flatter, disconnected. The spark was dim. And yet the WBC ranks him at number 5? 5? On what basis? Past glory? If that's the new rule, then let's bring back Mike Tyson for another heavyweight belt. Why not? Let's call up Lennox Lewis, throw him a belt, and book a trilogy with Vitaly Klitschko. Forget merit, forget rankings, just nostalgia, fight your way to the top. The critics are right. This is the kind of absurdity that kills credibility. Barrios should be defending his title against real contenders. Young blood, hungry fighters grinding it out, clawing up the rankings like they're supposed to. Not a retired senator stepping back into the ring like it's 2010 all over again. Frank Warren, ever the businessman, didn't sugarcoat it either. Pacquiao's return isn't a sporting miracle. It's a marketing ploy. George Foreman did it once, sure, but that was lightning in a bottle. Foreman had a style that aged well. He leaned on size, power, and experience. He wasn't trying to move like a hummingbird. Pacquiao's style, by contrast, is speed, explosiveness, angles. That's what made him great. That's what he can't replicate at 46.
That's why Manny Pacquiao, after Marquez knocked him out, Freddie Roach said, I want you to take a year off. That was a bad knockout.
And the damage isn't just to the sport's reputation, it's potentially to Pacquiao himself. Boxing isn't a forgiving game. It's not golf. It's not tennis. You don't lose gracefully. You lose with broken bones, bruised brains, and sometimes you don't come back the same. Think about this. A 30-year-old Barrios lands clean. It only takes one. The chin doesn't age like fine wine. It weakens. And Pacquiao's chin has already seen more missiles than a battlefield. He's been KO'd, dropped, and rattled more times than fans care to count. Every fight adds up. And at this stage, the risks multiply. Even De La Hoya, Pacquiao's former victim in the ring, couldn't keep quiet. His message was blunt. At 46, rest is your best friend. Pacquiao might still have a killer instinct, but his body's ability to follow through? That's another story. Yordenis Ugas, the man who handed Pacquiao his last loss, made a chilling observation. Nobody wins this fight. If Barrios wins, it's because Manny was old. If Manny wins, it's because boxing lost its standards. Either way, someone's getting discredited. Let's not forget, Barrios doesn't benefit much here. It's a lose-lose. Beat up a 46-year-old and you get zero credit. Lose to one and you're a meme. He's the villain no matter what.
Marquez is a bad man.
He's a bad man. And it looked like he was on all the good stuff. It looks like his piss would melt the styrofoam cup.
Even Tim Tszyu, always respectful, couldn't hide his concern. Pacquiao's name carries weight, but that won't hold up under Barrios' fists. This isn't sparring. This isn't hitting mitts with Roach in an Instagram video. This is live fire. You know it's bad when even fans, hardcore, loyal, bleeding Pacquiao fans, are conflicted. Nobody wants to see a hero fall. Nobody wants to watch a king crumble in slow motion under stadium lights. But that's the reality this fight invites. And Joe Rogan, with his usual clarity, is just the messenger for the uncomfortable truth. The issue isn't Manny's heart. It's his body, his mileage. The hundreds of rounds, the training camps, the weight cuts, the miles jogged at dawn, the sparring wars we never saw, the injuries never disclosed. It all adds up. And maybe, just maybe, he knows this too. Maybe that's why the fight's happening now. One last dance, one last check, one last roar from the crowd before the lights dim forever. But what if that last roar ends with silence?
If they drug tested him, it would ding like a carnival bell. Like one of them Bugs Bunny ones where he's got the big mallet.
It's a plea for sanity, for someone, somewhere, to step in and say, enough. For Mario Barrios to ask himself if he wants to be the man who ends a legend, or the man who watched a legend fall in front of him and felt no pride. Loses badly. The headlines won't say Barrios was great. They'll say Pacquiao was done. They'll say, we told you so. And if, by some floodgates will open, every retired fighter with a heartbeat and a name will start lining up for one last payday, and the sport will slide even further into chaos. So what do we do now? We watch. We wait. We hope, perhaps foolishly, that Manny can walk out with his health, with his pride intact, with his legend unscathed, and maybe, just maybe, we hope Mario Barrios hears the warning before it's too late. Because fighting Manny Pacquiao isn't just dangerous for Pacquiao, it's dangerous for the sport, for the truth, and for whatever sense of legitimacy boxing still has left. The ring lights flicker again, and here comes the real question. What happens if boxing's most thrilling storyteller walks into the pages of a cautionary tale? Imagine the scene. Pacquiao moves like he still believes in magic, and Barrios stands firm with the cold, hard mathematics of youth and power. The audience holds its breath as coaches hover ringside, tapping watches and whispering strategies like secret incantations. Every punch thrown is a syllable in a sentence that could end careers. In the author, on flesh.
I was freaking out at first. It's a great honor, for a legend like himself, to want to.
Then there's the corporate angle, that gleaming beast called big money. Promoters clean their glasses and squint at spreadsheets heavy with pay-per-view buys. They see Pacquiao's name shining like a neon sign in Times Square. They pencil in projected revenues that could fund entire gyms. Profit margins sprout wings and fly, blind to the human cost that floats in the ring's blood-tinged water. Television executives circle the fight like vultures over fresh prey. They imagine the commercials, the slow-motion replays, the dramatic pauses before the knockout blow. Every ad break is a heartbeat, pulsing with the promise of ratings spikes.
Like I said, it's just my job, just to work on everything. Me and my team have been, training and drilling, these last couple weeks. And,
Scripts for the commentators, laying out the narrative arcs months before the first punch lands. Yet no amount of marketing muscle can rewrite the risk that lingers in every corner of that ring. Backstage, trainers pace like restless journalists hunting for a scoop. They adjust gloves, tap tape, and pace again until the mat beneath their feet feels like quicksand. They know that conditioning can only carry a fighter so far. The rest depends on split-second reflexes that weaken as birthdays pile up. They watch Pacquiao's warm-up, eyes flicking to Barrios' shadowboxing, calculating whose tired body will fold first under pressure. Fans gather in bars and living rooms, eyes glued to screens, hearts hooked by hope or dread. Some wear Pacquiao jerseys, clutch rosaries, and shout prayers. Others don Barrios caps, flex thumbs in anticipation of victory tweets. Social media ignites in a frenzy of hot takes, memes, and viral clips. The world watches, united by a single thread, the allure of a legend's last stand.
Come back and, to contend against my title. And I know, this is a...
Then there's the aftermath speculation, the kind that spins like a carousel of what-ifs. If Pacquiao falls early, will his legacy fracture like old pottery? If he endures, will he become a myth reborn, defying logic and aging? Historians of the sweet science will debate for years, citing statistics, punch counts, and ringside anecdotes. The fight's outcome will ripple through boxing journals and gym walls, shaping tomorrow's champions and cautionary tales. Sports psychologists will pounce on every gesture, decoding the body language of warriors. They'll study flinches, eye movement, stance shifts, looking for clues to the mind's cracks. They'll write papers on the psychology of comebacks, the thin line between courage and denial. Their work will fill university libraries. Yet for all their analysis, the truth remains raw and unscientific. The ring rewards only those who survive. Journalists will chase quotes from former opponents who dusted off their gloves to reminisce. They'll dig up archived footage of Pacquiao's lightning flurries and Barrios' steady jab. They'll cobble together narratives contrasting youth and experience. Each column will play out like an old movie, complete with nostalgic score. Readers will devour these stories, hungry for context to justify the spectacle they watched.
Probably like my biggest fight at hand. And I'm just
Podcasters will argue into microphones, voices rising and falling like round timers. They'll invite ex-champions, referees, and ring girls to weigh in. They'll replay sound bites, dissecting every syllable and inflection. Their followers will flood chat rooms with predictions, regrets, and defiant defenses of their picks. The fight will echo across airwaves, a continuous loop of analysis and opinion. Meanwhile, gym rats will return to training with renewed fervor or cautious restraint. Some will vow to retire before their clocks run out. Others will chase the dream harder, convinced that age is just a number. Coaches will revise training plans, emphasizing recovery as much as raw power. The next generation will watch Pacquiao's final dance and either see a hero's farewell or a warning poster pinned on the walls.
I said, I mean, at the end it's kill or be killed. You know, I know, you know, like if he has been hurt at any point, you know, he's gonna be the same way.
Legal experts will pore over contract clauses, examining clauses about medical checks, insurance payouts, and liability waivers. They'll debate whether promoters crossed ethical lines by letting this fight happen. They'll prepare for lawsuits if catastrophic injuries occur. Law journals will publish treatises on athlete welfare and corporate responsibility. The ring's canvas will stain more than gloves. It will stain legal briefs. Then there's the cultural dimension. In the Philippines, Pacquiao is more than a boxer. He's a symbol of hope, a counterpunch to poverty and hardship. His return evokes pride, nostalgia, and fear that their hero might endure too much. Streets will buzz with radio chatter about his training, his meals, his moods. Devotees will fast on fight night, believing in spiritual protection. The nation's pulse will sync with the bell that signals round one. In Texas, Barrios' hometown will explode with local pride. Bars will hang banners proclaiming that the local boy will defend honor against the legend. Kids in gyms will imitate his shadowboxing, dreaming of making locals proud. Newspapers will run front-page features on his journey from amateur to champion. The community's identity will intertwine with his gloves.
Think about 147, tank going up from 135 to 147. Yeah, y'all, no, shoe program.
Global boxing federations will twitch nervously, fearing that this fight sets a precedent. They'll draft new rules for comeback eligibility. They'll tighten ranking criteria and demand tune-up fights. Sanctioning fees might hike, and promoters may grumble. The sport's regulatory bodies will hope that this spectacle fades fast, lest it become the new normal. Betting markets will wobble under unpredictable odds. Bookmakers will scramble to balance the books as bettors flood in with heavy wagers on both sides. Social media influencers will share betting tips, disclaimers, and promotional codes. Livestream chats will explode with emoji reactions as the fight unfolds. When the final bell rings, someone's wallet will bulge while another's empties.
Yes, it is. That fight was a struggle, and if Mario Barrios wasn't weight drained with the rehydration clause at 140.
So here's the final bell. Should Mario Barrios step forward or step aside? Should Manny Pacquiao chase one last sunrise in the squared circle or rest in the sunset of his glory? The answer lies not in spreadsheets or social media polls, but in the quiet moment before gloves touch and the bell rings. Only then will the legend, the youngster, and boxing itself reveal their true colors. Subscribe, like, and comment to keep the conversation alive. The story isn't over until the last glove drops, and the next chapter is written by those bold enough to ask the hard questions.